to another jam-filled episode of the Social League. My name is Madeleine Garces and I'm going to be the moderator of today's episode. There is great importance in understanding the impact that COVID-19 has had on our education sphere. But before we dive into that, let's just pay our rent. So stay tuned for our daily promo ad. Welcome back, viewers. So the losses that the country has experienced, because of COVID-19, especially within the education community, has not only impacted the teachers as well as the learners. But we're going to dive into that today. Joining me on my panel today is Dopewa. She's a student from UNAM. Welcome, Dopewa.
Thank you, Desiree.
And then we have Ms. Alpheus. Ms. Alpheus is a teacher from Hage. Welcome, Ms. Alpheus.
It's a pleasure.
And then we have Ms. Marina. Ms. Marina is a clinical psychologist. So welcome to the panel. Thank you so much for joining us here today.
Pleasure to be here.
Oh, thank you. So today, like I mentioned earlier, we'd really like to dissect the emotional as well as the mental impact that COVID-19 has had on the education sphere with the loss of so many teachers. And firstly, what I would like to ask is, I'll start with you. With you, Dr. So as a student or a learner, you were previously a learner last year, and now you are a first year student. So what would you say is the impact that the loss of so many teachers has had on a learner and on a student?
I think it's just very important to understand the role that a teacher plays before we can dive into it. Because if you think about it, a teacher is someone that we see Monday to Friday, 5 times in a week. That obviously means that a certain level of attachment has grown between you and this individual. In most cases, they say that teachers substitute the parent role at school. So when we lose teachers, it's more than just losing a teacher. It's more like losing not only a teacher, but a friend and someone that we can confide into in most cases. Because when I'm at school and I'm going through something, even being bullied, for instance, the first person I would go to, even before going home and telling my mom about it, is obviously a teacher. So I think losing a teacher is like you basically get the same feeling like losing someone that's important in your life. And it's quite impactful because it has a certain effect on you as a person, because you lost someone that you see on a weekly basis, on a daily basis. You lost someone that you can speak to, you lost someone that you can confide in. So I feel like it has an entire mental issue on your well-being as a person.
Yeah, okay.
Definitely.
And Ms. Alpheus, as a teacher and somebody who would directly, worked with somebody who could have probably succumbed to COVID-19, how would you say that affected you as a teacher?
Well, Desiree, I think my key word is going to be frustration. As teachers, we were still dealing with a lot of frustration brought forth by the COVID pandemic. Not only are we dealing with the frustration of having lost a lot of our own, we are also dealing with the frustration of, taking this whole education thing online and trying to implement the curriculum online, and then dealing with frustration from digital divide, the difference between who and who cannot access the internet. You're dealing with that. You're also dealing with digital illiteracy. I'm a teacher, but I won't lie, I struggled to set up my Google Classroom. And then after finally setting it up, I struggled to get most of my students to sign up to my class. So I'm dealing with all of that, and then I still have to deal with the emotional side and the psychological side of having been with somebody who felt like a sibling, because when we are at work we become friends, we become siblings, and this person, you wake up one morning and they are gone, and you are afraid of yourself, you're afraid for yourself, you feel, am I going to be next? That's the question you ask yourself. But at the same time, you try to maintain, you try to be strong for these learners because they need you. You are their second parent. Yeah, you don't just succumb to the fear. You try to be strong for them, yeah.
Okay. And Ms. Marina, I actually wanted to ask you, so we've mentioned that there's a psychological impact that things like this can have on teachers and learners. So what would you say, as much as when somebody loses somebody, they know that they are sad or they're not feeling okay, but as a professional, what would you say are the impacts that they would have, that these kind of situations would have on a teacher or a learner, the psychological impacts?
I think Tuapewa and Ms. Orfelis mentioned very important aspects of it, right? Even though we are not going in the theory of it, but what they are bringing up is actually having a great value in our discussion today, because like Tuapewa mentioned, losing somebody that you are attached to. She mentioned very important part of educational process, that the learners get attached to their teachers. And therefore the teacher is now becoming not only a teacher, but the significant person in their life. And therefore, when they are losing the significant person in their life, they might experience the full process of grief, which is now certain stages that they have to go into, but also the challenge comes in that they are not allowed to grieve properly by the community, by the society, because it's just a teacher, right? It's not a family member, it's not a sibling, it's not a mother, it's not an auntie, it's not an uncle, it's just a teacher, right? While for the learner who is experiencing the loss of the significant other, that person might feel like a family member, and therefore they will be going psychologically through the full process of grief. And the challenge comes in that it's not understood as such, and often they are not allowed, or they are told, why are you crying for so long, and so on, and that contributes to the issue of complicated grief. And now we are talking about the clinical diagnosis of complicated grief when it goes long, because we all know with the mourning process that it's important for us to feel, and it has been already challenged by the COVID-19, because we can't have a proper memorial services where people can come together and support each other and share their feelings in that process. Plus, now there is this part that this is not a family member, right? And what Ms. Alpheus is mentioning, also very important part of being in the same shoes, or putting yourself in the same shoes, because a lot of people had contracted the virus and we don't know where exactly. Was it in the school where we came for a meeting? Was it during the face-to-face stages? Was it in the shop? Was it in their family setting? We don't know that. So we tend to assume, or we have different thoughts, and therefore we are putting ourselves in these shoes. She was a teacher, she contracted the virus, she didn't make it, or he didn't make it, right? And I am in the similar role, or a similar age, or in similar situation. Will it be me next time? And now we are talking about anxiety-related issues that are coming up in that process, because each and every time the teacher, like Ms. Alpheus mentioned, still have to go and show up and deliver, right? And they are not allowed to experience their anxiety or their grief as well, because they have to show up for the learners. She mentioned a very important thing, you have to be strong. While comparing to the people in the other industries, let's say if somebody works at the office setting and they have their own space, and they are still going through the grief process, or they're anxious, they have their space. So for example, when they're experiencing their feelings, they can lock the office door, have a minute or so, just or have a moment where they can process those feelings. Why for teachers, it's a bit challenging, because they are in front of the class. And when the tears are coming up, they just have to swallow them and continue doing what they are doing. So the psychological impact, or the impact on the mental health of all people who are participating in the educational system is going to be a huge one, because there will be a delay in the process in certain things, and unfortunately by the end of the day that becomes a challenge when we are not allowed, or we are not allowing ourselves, or we are not having the time or the space to process our feelings that are connected to the loss of somebody that we get attached to, that we loved, that we valued, and that we looked up to.
Okay.
Desiree, just to add on to what Ms. Marina said, in regards to how we aren't allowed to fully express how we feel about the passing of a teacher because it's just a teacher and it's not a family member, it's not my parent. But that's where the issue comes in, because many a times, like, it's a sad reality, we come from households, for instance, where my dad could be an alcoholic, or I see my parents fight a lot, like, to the point where going to school has become sort of like my safe haven. And I escape from all this trauma that I have at home, because this is where I live and I don't have a choice. In many cases, I'm young. Like, if I decide to leave now, where will I go to? So the role that our life skills teachers even just play, those are people that we can speak to, and not only life skills teachers, but any teacher in general, because in most cases they're able to see the potential that these students have, and they get to a certain level with them. So it's not fair that we are not allowed to, fully express how we feel towards losing our teachers, when our families or households are sometimes absent from us in that regard.
Okay, no, that's very true. And we all know that there is no remedy, or there is no one size fits all when it comes to dealing with such emotions. But how would you say, as a learner or as a student, how are you dealing with these type of emotions?
I think, to be quite honest, I'm taking it as a loss of anyone else. I think I'm allowing myself to really understand that, no, this was my teacher. And like, I did lose a teacher from my previous high school, and we saw the impact that it had on my WhatsApp status, not only mine, but all my contacts. Everyone was reposting her. They just it just showed that we really genuinely felt a type of way because of losing our teacher, because she was a mother to all. So I think the best way that I dealt with my emotions was just fully processing what happened and trying to understand that, yes, I lost my teacher, and what we can do is light a candle, pray about it, and just understand that it's a loss, and these things will happen in life, especially with COVID being around us or being amongst us. We live with it, and we've seen that over the past month, June, July, people have been passing away, and we are just scared to hear the next day it might be someone close to you, a teacher, whoever. So I think the best way to just deal with it, or how we tell people to deal with it, is just to fully understand and process what's going on, and take it as any other loss of someone that's close to you.
First, I think we have to understand that COVID-19 is a health crisis, right? And we've dealt with so many health crises before as a nation, but this is the first crisis of its kind that my generation is dealing with, okay? And when I say my generation, I mean teachers who are the same age as me or in the same age gap. And I'm talking about learners. The learners are mostly the ones that are experiencing high school now, because the little ones still don't understand the impact. They don't fully understand the impact of COVID-19. So, as much as it is a health crisis, it's a new health crisis. We are experiencing this for the first time as a nation. So we are being innovative. As much as we are being innovative in implementing the curriculum, we are also being innovative in finding ways to support these learners and support ourselves as teachers, And one thing I like about COVID is that it has brought forth a very important aspect of socio-emotional support. It has been existent, but we have not really, how do I put it? We have not respected it or given it enough respect, So, as a teacher myself, I'm not a life skills teacher, but these kids feel comfortable with me. And if they come to me, we grieve together, okay? I allow myself to be vulnerable in front of my learners. And then we look for, we also have to understand that these kids going back to their houses, being in a lockdown, some of them are staying with extended family members. They are going through sexual abuse. So at the same, they are dealing with COVID-19, and then they are also dealing with other family issues that don't directly affect COVID-19, or they are going through issues that are not directly brought forward by COVID-19. But because you are in a lockdown, you are in a setting where you are staying with 3 cousins who are older than you, let's say for the girl child now, and these cousins are molesting you. So when this child comes back to school, you just have to use a soft approach for these learners, and also try to be gentle on yourself as a teacher. So I'm being gentle on myself so that I can also be able to transform this gentleness to my learners. Yes.
Definitely.
Ms. Marina, what advice would you give to teachers and learners in regards to dealing with it? Like, what tips would you give them to be like, you know what, try this, try that, try this. You know, this would help for the situation or the circumstance that you are in.
It's a bit challenging, to give the advice because, my colleagues on the panel mentioned that everybody has going through individual feelings and everybody's situation is different. But in general, what is very important, and that's what Ms. Alfels also mentioned, that they are allowing themselves to feel. So I think I will take it from them and will also emphasize on that it is very important to allow ourselves to feel. And even though sometimes it feels like the day is so busy and there is no time to feel, or it's not allowed to feel, maybe what can be done, that time can be scheduled. So maybe every evening as I come from school, as I come from work, I can have this half an hour or an hour where I'm allowing myself to feel. I can write down maybe in the journal a bit of my feelings or what transpired today, because the day might be overwhelming, and sometimes just writing down about the day helps to reflect on the day and helps to understand what is that I was actually feeling. Because when we are at the middle of situation and when we have to be strong or listen to some quite traumatizing stories that the learners are sharing with us, or something like that, we might not be fully aware of how it impacted us. So just having the moment at the end of the day where we are able to reflect on how today's activity or what was happening today impacted me on the emotional level will be very good for the mental health, right? And also very important is to schedule some pleasurable activity. Right, I know we all talk about exercising or talking to the friends and whatsoever, but it's very important for me to empathize that everybody finds joy in something totally different. So we can't overgeneralize it, but whatever is that you like, whatever is that put your mind at ease, whatever is that helps you to feel a little bit lighter on your chest, that's what you should exercise. For example, some people go to gym after they had a tough day, right? And they say that, no, go to gym, it helps you to feel good. But in my case, gym just irritates the hell out of me when I have a tough day, right? I need a long shower, maybe, and a cup of tea and just a quiet moment without talking to anybody, seeing anybody, right? So we cannot overgeneralize those advices, right? But we should rather say, pay attention to what feels nice to you. Just take a moment and ask yourself, what is that feels good for me in the moments when I'm overwhelmed? Is it a walk? Is it a talking to a friend? Is it washing dishes? Is it doing a little bit of gardening? Is it a long shower? Is it a cup of tea? Is it just being alone in the quiet room with lights off, and maybe just with some quiet music on the side, right? Is it a prayer? Is it a gospel music that I like? What is that? And whatever is that helps you to feel a little bit better or gives some space on the chest, like we were breathing today, right? Before, because coming to the studio, having the panel discussion also comes with a little bit of anxiety, right? And I was sitting, just taking deep breath, and Tapoya said that it doesn't work for her. But when we did it together, it was like, okay, it actually has an impact, right? So just checking out, and like Ms. Alfeo said, being creative, being also experimenting with what is that works for you in those difficult times. But important thing in that, it's being kind to yourself and being compassionate with yourself. So if you are struggling with some feelings, instead of judging yourself or being guilty for feeling that way, try to practice a little bit of compassion. Just take a moment and say, it's okay, I'm struggling right now. It's okay that I'm not feeling 100% right now, but I'm going to take a moment, I'm going to take an hour or half an hour and do something that feels supportive for me, that feels good for me. And therefore, I'm accepting that I might have a moment of not feeling 100% or not feeling okay. And when I'm allowing this moment, when I'm allowing myself to feel it, probably after that I will find a little bit more strength because I will feel supported and I will feel like I have an energy to move into another day. Because the best way to heal it is to feel it and
let it go through you.
Yes.
Feel all the emotion. Yes, I think a problem that we face, sometimes it's in households, sometimes it's as a community, is that people don't per se deal with their emotions. They don't let it go through them so that you know, in this moment I'm feeling this and I'm going to let it go through me and then I'm going to move on after that. So I think that's a very important point that the panel made today. Ms. Marina, another thing that I also wanted to ask was, what would you say, because in a time like this, people go through a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression, how would you, this is for the teachers to be able to point out these things, because a lot of the times we don't notice these things. So what are signs of maybe depression or anxiety that learners could show, that teachers could point out and possibly help the learners with these kind of problems?
All right, I think the generation of teachers of today are quite informed about the mental health. I believe so, right? And they are able to recognize some of the things. But the important specific moment to emphasize on that the depression and anxiety might present itself a little bit differently in the adolescents than as what we usually know how it presents with the adult ones. So in the adult person, we will be witnessing the changes in the mood. The person will be sad most of the days consistently for more than 2 weeks. There will be changes in the sleeping pattern, in the eating pattern, weight loss, increased irritability, the thoughts about dying, or it's something that can come out in the conversation. I wish God just takes me, not necessarily suicidal thoughts, but just inability to enjoy life, kind of hopelessness, worthlessness, feeling like there is nothing good out of it, right? So that will be the classic presentation of the depressive disorders in the adult, while with the teenagers, with adolescents, it will be a little bit different. So they will still experience the same struggles, changes in appetite, either overeating or not eating, gaining weight or losing weight, difficulties sleeping, but the specific element to this age group will be that they'll be acting out. They'll be acting out, and their behavior will be very different from how you usually know this learner. So this learner is usually the loudest in the class, and all of a sudden it's a quiet person, does not respond to questions, or the vice versa. Maybe this girl or this boy have been always a quiet child, obedient child, but now it's this child is misbehaving or bullying others, or engaging in the use of substances, or swearing. So every change in the behavior should be a concern, and we should start observing, is it consistent something, or is it something just situational, right? Because with the emotional impact of what the pandemic has on all of us these days, some reactions might be situational. So for example, I have a bad day, or I had some bad news and I'm processing, so I might be acting out, or my mood might be changed for today. But if it's consistent for more than 2 weeks, then we are talking about the clinical diagnosis of depression or the depressive spectrum of the disorders. The same way with the anxiety. I might be anxious today because I received some news, or maybe something happened in the household or in school, and therefore I'm not able to perform today, I'm not able to sit and write the exams, my hands are shaking, shortness of breath, I might experience the episode of heart palpitation and dizziness, and might even faint. We are talking now about panic attacks and so on. But when it's happening recurrently or for the period of longer than 2 weeks, then there should be a concern for that. And therefore, that needs to be evaluated by the medical professional just to see what intervention needs to be done. Should it be the talk therapy, the psychotherapy modality, or should there will be a need for medication depending on the severity of the symptoms that the child needs to be supported as well. And that also expands to the colleagues as well. It's just that the presentation will be a little bit different between the adolescents and the adults.
Okay, I feel like that was a very important message, because in a time like this, it's very easy to confuse feelings and behaviors, because we've never been in a pandemic. So everybody is reacting to this time in our lives differently. And it's easy to confuse, a changing behavior for depression, or changing behavior for, maybe, he's just dealing with something that's not really an issue. Meanwhile, it's a bigger issue. But we have come to the end of our panel. But before that, if there are any last words that the panel would like to give to the viewers, something that they need to maybe stay mindful of, I think that would be, the time would be now. So, Dr. do you have anything that you would like to say to the viewers? Okay,
I think I just want to quickly just remind the viewers or the teachers about the consistency within the syllabus. So like the JSC syllabus, or prior now to it changing, was consistent for a time period. For 10 years straight, it was JSC, it was NSSC, it was higher level subjects, ordinary level subjects, meaning the teachers already had a very fixed way to approach the syllabus. And because of this, the kids were used to these teachers, because sometimes, for instance, my accounting teacher was my same teacher from grade 9 to grade 12, meaning they know the syllabus, they are consistent with it, and they apply it continuously each and every year. So I think because now teachers are passing away and we are losing our teachers, when new teachers do come into the school environment, it's just important for them maybe to get a point from the learners in terms of how did your previous teacher engage the syllabus, how did she engage you guys, because they need to understand that because we lost someone that was, that we were very used to, it's sometimes difficult to adapt now to this new person. So if maybe the teachers could come in and understand that these are kids that lost someone, students or learners that lost someone, maybe what approaches did you guys take, and try to continue with it, or maybe slightly divert from it, just to also, get an understanding from the kids, and maybe just continue the pace that they were at. Yeah.
Well, you stole my point, but I'm glad because you said it more beautifully than I could even say it myself. Maybe it is just to, urge the teachers, my fellow teachers, and also just urge the parents at home. Let us not ignore important signs that we are getting from our children and our learners. Now, the first thing that we as teachers notice when a child is changing their behavior, we notice a change in the assessment, okay? A drop in their performance, maybe. That is the first thing that we notice. But many a times we just, you're not serious with your work anymore. You used to be a brilliant student, but we don't try and take this further, a step further, and have a discussion with this child and just ask this child, how are you? You'll be surprised that I ask so many learners, I just call them after maybe class, I tell them, can you remain? And when you just ask this child, you look into their eyes and you ask them, child, how are you? They'll start tearing up. They'll start, feeling emotions, because they're like, wow, they're overwhelmed by the fact that you care about them, and that you have not ignored the signs that they are showing. Yeah, so just urging the parents and the teachers, my fellow teachers, let us not ignore the signs that our children are showing. Let us be mindful. Let us care for them. These are our children. And like I have a favorite saying, it is because of these learners that I have a salary, okay? I have a job because of these children. So they are important to me. Thank you.
Yeah, maybe just to highlight, because from what I hear, what Ropeva and Ms. Alfeos are mentioning, that it's very important for us to stay united, to have each other back in these difficult times. So let's keep that in mind, that everybody is struggling and everybody is trying to do their best in their struggles. And that might not look like they are doing enough. Like Ms. Alfeos mentioned, that there might be the drop in the performance of a learner and of a teacher sometimes, right? Some of the teacher might not have enough time to prepare, or a bit lacking somewhere somehow. So while we are noticing that, let's try to assist. Let's give a shoulder. Let's come once in a while and ask, how are you doing? Is there anything that I can do at this point? Do you need me just to listen? Do you need me to assist somewhere? Because today it's this learner or this colleague. Tomorrow it might be me. It might be the other learner. So let's remain kind to each other, and let's keep this conversation going. I always say that the right intervention starts with awareness, and therefore I'm also thankful that you are having this discussion, and that my colleagues on the panel are joining and also sharing their feelings and their observations and their experiences. And let's take it from this studio back to our communities, and let's encourage the people we know, the friends, the colleagues, the family members to be cognizant that these times are not an easy times, and we cannot compare what had been happening in 2019, how we had been handling the stress and issues and challenges, to how we are dealing with this right now. Because the intensity of impact is totally different, and therefore we have to also readjust our approaches. So stay kind to each other, support each other, try to give your shoulder to each other, and also remain compassionate and kind to yourself.
Thank you. Well, viewers, thank you so much for tuning in. I don't know about you guys, but for me, this panel was very, very informative, and it gave me a sense of, I don't know, I feel very
safe.
I feel very safe. Yes, I felt very safe, and I also felt that it's important to feel. It's very important to feel. So I hope all the viewers, felt that this discussion was informative, as it was for me. But that's it from us. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you guys next week. Same time, same place.